Hello everyone, welcome back to Maritime SoftwareHub, the People podcast. In this episode, I'm really excited to be joined by Cameron Amigo. Cameron's got a fascinating background, started off his career in the States working as a tugboat captain. He's then worked in the US Army, he's been a broker, a shipbroker, and he's also, in more recent years, worked in some maritime software and digital shipping focused businesses. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the role of data, and in particular the head of data position that he was in one of his recent companies. And given the fact that Cameron has spent the majority of his time in his career in the US, we're also going to shine a little bit of a spotlight on the US market and what the maritime technology landscape is like over in the US. So I hope you find this one interesting. Certainly really good to get Cameron on, because I know he's also been sharing some really cool posts and articles lately about topics that kind of relate close to what we're passionate and interested about as well. So thank you for joining us and enjoy the episode. Hi Cameron, welcome to the show.
Callum, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I know we've been speaking to a number of years now, so it's a really great to get you included in our podcast and hear your insights. So I've given a quick intro in the build up to the episode. So perhaps if you could sort of share an overview of kind of who you are and your kind of background to date, keeping it kind of quite high level, that'd be really great.
Yeah, I started at one of the maritime academies in the States, and I sailed as a tugboat captain on the Great Lakes on ship assist before I came shoreside. And when I was shoreside, I've had an unusual path to get here. I worked for a cash buyer. I deployed with the U.S. Army, but most notably, I spent 9 years at SPI Marine, their chemical tanker broker, worldwide company with about 100 people. There I started as a broker. Then I took on this project, and that project ended up being 7 years, and I ended up leading our digital and data efforts there globally. And then I also most recently joined forces and worked with Voyager Portal, which is a young startup out of Houston.
Yeah, no, excellent. And I think we started connecting and speaking during your SPI days.
Yeah.
So that sounded like a really interesting venture and great that the insights that they were developing on the maritime side and particularly in the chemical side. So, yeah, I mean, when I was looking at your profile, there's so many things that we can talk about. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like you've got 3 MBAs. Is that right? 2 or 3 MBAs?
I got 1 MBA and then a master's in business analytics, so just 2.
Okay, well, still very impressive. And also, yeah. So carry on.
I was going to say, what's funny though with the business analytics, I really learned on YouTube and asking people, and then I went back to get a degree just so people would like trust me. But the education was really through YouTube.
I'm the same. I've learned so much off YouTube. Pretty much, the last 5 or 6 years or so, everything I try and do around the house or whatever is all guided with the camera up in front of me. It's a good channel. Cool. And yeah, I mean, really, one thing that stood out to me in particular was the projects you've done with the Connecticut Maritime Association and your involvement there. So would it be okay if you just elaborated a bit on that and what that involved?
Yeah, so the Connecticut Maritime Association, the CMA, they brought me on, I think, because in the shipping world, I was young, one of the youngest guys. And they're like, hey, can you help us out with some digital efforts? And they had a website, which I think was, it was a little old. It looked like it was created in the 90s. So we just started updating that. And then I worked with another partner on there, Jess Hurwitz, who's now at Orbit, and we got a new membership portal and just kind of updated their social, just kind of brought them into the modern world a bit. But it's a really good organization with a lot of history. They have the CMA conference every year in Connecticut, which brings people from all over the world. So so it was really good. And when I joined, it was right before COVID too. So all these digital efforts kind of arrived at the best time.
Good. And how are you seeing the kind of the US market? I mean, in particular, the focus on the digital shipping and maritime technology. Obviously, you spent the majority of your career in that area. So over the last sort of 5, 10 years or so, has there been much advancements, you saying, in the US market?
Yeah, there's been advancement. I also think there's been a little shift. Initially, you would see these startups or these companies come on the scene, and they're like, we're gonna change the world. We're gonna have an online, transaction space or this or that, and these big initiatives, and those seem to have slowed down a pace, and it's more, we're gonna solve this problem
Yeah.
around optimization, around CII, around demurrage, right? And you kind of falling into these niches. So that's one shift that I've seen in the last 3 to 5 years, a little bit, um, that's come into
Okay.
place.
Interesting. Are there any particular? Obviously, Connecticut is one big hub, but I mean, we work with a few companies and clients over in the States now in areas like Boston, Houston,
Yeah.
Austin. Are there any particular, I guess, yeah, technology hubs? Maybe aside from the typical like Silicon Valley and that area, but anything related to maritime where you see this particular cities or places that are really popular?
It's funny. I feel like they pop up all over, and then they're like, all right, we gotta be in Houston at some point.
Okay,
But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, definitely there's the Boston crowd. I mean, that's always been, with Vesson as leaders, and there's been some that spawned out of that, and a few notable ones in New York. But ultimately, it's funny that there always ends up to be some presence um, there. So I don't think there's one that's really rose above as like, this is the place for maritime technology companies. So yeah.
yeah. A lot of when we've helped companies, like Europe-based companies, hire into the US. Often they're pretty relaxed about the exact city where perhaps
Yeah.
the candidate might be based, as long as they can travel and can go out and see clients and things. I guess it gravitate towards where the client cluster is, and as you say, places like Houston, if it's more of an energy focused solution, you're probably going down that way, I would imagine, in
Yeah.
that sort of region. Okay, cool. No, good, and also really interesting to hear about your military background and everything. So you've got very yeah, colourful background, which is really, really interesting to see. Um, Great. And so so each episode, as you may know, we try and focus on one particular role within the digital shipping space. And I've been really interested reading and listening and watching your videos lately as well. I saw the one recently about customer success,
Hmm.
which is really awesome in SaaS. So I've definitely learning a bit from your podcast or your videos. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the role of head of data,
Yeah.
which is when I first started speaking to you more. SPI is the main role. I think you were kind of the title you had
Right.
at the time. So I guess as an overview, how would you kind of describe that particular role? What were the main kind of job functions?
Yeah. So the head of data, the first thing with data is, so you kind of have your data on one side, and then you have your software on the other, and they're connected. You pull one, it's gonna change the other. You pull here, it's gonna change the other. So you got to kind of look at it as a holistic approach. And if you kind of think of the software, you're like, well, why does that come in? Because that starts with your data collection. So if you have a great software program that everyone's using, they're putting their information in, that's your data storage. If you have a bad software and everyone's like, I'm just doing my demurrage on Excel and then I send a claim, right? It's not making it into the system. So the starts with the data collection. And that's where you have to work really close with what software that you're using to manage your processes. Um, so first we have data collection. Then we have data storage. And those are different. So you want to make it easy for people to collect the data. Then we have to store it somewhere. So, for example, if you heard terms like data warehouse, data lakes, those types of things. And part of that is we just take the information, we call like transactional data, however it comes in, and we move it over to another location where we can clean it up, where we
Yeah,
can move it around. If someone spells Houston HSTN, then you can change it to actually writing out the full word. So that's what we call that the ETL process: extract, transform, and then load. So we have data store or data collection, then data storage,
yeah,
right? And then next step is we have modeling the data, setting it up for how do we want this. Are we trying to do aggregates to get totals, averages, find trends, those types of things? So we'd set up a data model that works well for that. And part of that is optimization. So if you have a large data set, you want to optimize it so it's not running slow. The last step is analysis. And so analyzing it. So first we have data collection, the data storage and cleanup, modeling, and then lastly we have the analysis. So if you do those first three well, it makes the analysis really fast and really easy. And the three types of analysis that I used to focus on, we have descriptive analysis. That's just like what happened. Then we have predictive analysis, predicting what will happen. And then prescriptive analysis. So giving you insights to help you make a decision in the future. So that was pretty much my whole business analytics degree in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and you're overseeing all of that. So you've got a team of data analysts, data scientists behind you that would help you with all that, put it all together, essentially.
Yes, and I was fortunate and to be in charge of both the IT, so in the software as well as the data side. Because like I mentioned, adding a new piece of software brings in new data. Then it's like, well, how do we get that data over? Do we already have that data coming from other sources? So being able to see the complete picture was very helpful. But yeah, it was quite the team because there's a lot of different skills involved in that. You have developers, you have data architects or solution architects. There's different coding languages at different phases throughout this. And then even down to the analyst, they may have a special, some analysts are better with visualizations, others are better with commodities opposed to, more supply and demand shipping type data. So you need a unique team with unique sets of skills to kind of accomplish the big data picture, which is ultimately just answering questions for people.
No, good. And I mean, you probably mentioned bits and pieces of that, but anybody that's looking to try and go step up into that kind of head of data or CDO type of role, any kind of tips or perhaps pieces of insights that you can share to give them the best sort of chance of kind of progressing their career in that way?
Yeah, I think the big one is know where you want to go. If you know you want to be a CDO, there's going to be steps that you need to take. So don't worry, you're not going to go from I want to be a CDO to a CDO. So you may want to start learning a technical skill. But you understand if you're going to be a CDO, you're not going to be coding. So stay in that for 2 to 3 years, 2 to 4 years, get that familiarity. Then you're going to want to learn this skill. At some point, you want to manage a team. So move over into that. So as you progress, you're building this resume that gives you the experience and skills that you need. So I focus more on the skills, whether it's management or coding language as you progress. Because the big separator is, do you want to be a practitioner? Do you want to be the one doing it? Or do you want to be someone more strategic and leading it? So I would say early in your career, try to just learn what you like and what you don't, right? I know some people, they're like, I don't want to manage an analyst. I don't want to do presentations, KPI reviews, I don't want to do that. I just want to code and build awesome stuff. Other people are like, I love presenting. And so start with the end point, and it's allowed to change, by the way. So it's okay if you think you want to do presentations, you do it once, you're like, dude, this is not for me. So
that makes sense. And you talked about kind of learn different skills and different tools and that type of thing. So that kind of leads me nicely on to the next question. I mean, are there any, and I guess it's going to depend on what the outcome you're trying to get really is. So are there any particular tools or courses or programming skills that you kind of recommend, maybe relating to the digital shipping side that would be really worthwhile looking into?
I got one that I think everyone, regardless of what you do, should take. And it's data visualization course. It's for Story IQ. And they have these online courses you can do, and it teaches you how to communicate with data. And I see in shipping particularly, we are very bad at communicating with data. We just throw a lot of stuff on and graphs and charts, and that's the number one, because it doesn't matter where you are in this change. At some point, it's got to end in a visualization, and you got to be able to communicate it. Because I see some awesome data that's communicated poorly, and it just falls. Because people don't want to do that, to kind of do the legwork to look through a horrible visual to find the answer. So that's the one. I'd say the other, if you are interested in data, just start with SQL. That's kind of like the basis for a lot of things. Just underlining, getting the basic kind of like table structure. It's a good starting point, and then you'll figure out what you like and what you don't want to go from there.
And all of that you mentioned, you can learn online on YouTube, or obviously through universities and studies and things.
In LinkedIn, I follow a lot of, like, my LinkedIn, homepage. I just follow a lot of different data people, and they're just constantly posting free content and how-tos.
Great. Good. Okay, cool. And I guess moving on from kind of, I guess, the role of data, but like in your terms, I mean, perhaps more on a personal side, like I've known you a little bit now, but and anything about any kind of hobbies that you have, maybe that we haven't talked about, that you kind of particularly enjoy doing and spending time outside of work?
Well, I have 2 7-year-old boys, so they take up a lot of my time. So their hobbies are my hobbies, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right now. But yeah, they're a lot of fun. They're really into sports here in the States, soccer, football, for everyone else in the world. And then American football. So yeah, we're covered in the sports world right now.
Yeah, we're the same. I've got a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and the 3-year-old has just started to go to big school now. Well, say big school for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just sort of all hands on deck really at home and work and things. So it keeps you very, very busy.
Yeah.
No, good, cool. And I guess going forward, obviously, if people want to reach out to you and learn a bit more about obviously your story and any questions relating to data or your background, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Just LinkedIn. Just shoot me a message. Or write in the comments. Get a hold of me. And I have to say, I've done that. I've been on the other side of that a lot through LinkedIn, and I've met some really cool people from. I've had calls with people in Singapore or the Netherlands, and just people want to help people. I truly believe that, and I've seen that, especially on LinkedIn. And the maritime tech community is very small, and everyone's very helpful, and you can learn a lot. So reach out to people. If you see a post, just shoot them a message, tell them you enjoyed it, and just ask if you can have a 5-minute chat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's kind of pretty much most of our time is engaging with people on LinkedIn, as I'm sure everyone knows. They get approaches from recruiters and things. But for us, it is a great platform to connect with people. And here in the UK, we have London International Shipping Week this week. So I was at Inmarsat's event yesterday in London, which was really interesting. And again, those people you kind of maybe you spoke to briefly, you can then connect with them on LinkedIn and follow up. It's a great way to sort of build connections and things. So no, I think really delighted that you joined. I appreciate it was a little bit last minute, so thank you so much for coming on, and wanted to get this in the diary for a while, but great that we managed to book it in this week. But anything else you'd like to add to our listeners at all?
Yeah, just from a data perspective, I would just really try to push the simplicity of it, because there's a lot you can do, but in the end, you are answering a question for someone, and your job is to find what that true question is. They may say, I want a graph on bunkers, but what do you really want? Are you trying to negotiate a COA and you want to see what the bunkers are going to do? So you want to see the trend and how that impacts it. So you got to find the true question, right? The example they always give is someone comes in a store, they say they want to buy a shovel. They don't want to buy a shovel, they want to dig a hole. Well, they don't really want to dig a hole, they want to plant a tree. So again, privacy. They want privacy. So you sell them a shovel, but you really should be selling them privacy. It's the same thing with analysis. Like, find what the real question is and then deliver that answer. No one cares how you got there, by the way. You don't have to ever explain how you got there. Just give them the answer. And your job is to make the complex simple. And if you can do that, you'll go very far in data and analytics and any organization.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. And before we leave, any kind of common challenges that you come up against in that sort of role in a data analysis and data management type of position, whether it be with end users or more like maybe internally, anything you can think of?
Yeah, two challenges. One is, and everyone knows, the digital, the technical landscape is changing very fast. It doesn't even matter which BI tool you're using, Tableau, Power BI, they're sending updates every month. So it's very hard for you to do it on your own to keep up to date. So that's why you subscribe to podcasts like this or follow blogs, right? So that's the one thing, is don't expect that you're going to know everything about every piece of software. So you need to have a network. The second is, everyone that you are showing your analysis of data to is going to have a different level of understanding of the business and of data itself. So you have to constantly be a translator and go to where they are. It's not their fault if they don't understand your visual. Your job is to make them understand. So whether they're further from the business and more analytical, then you frame it that way. If they're a CEO who just needs to know the health of a company, put one card, make it red, green, or yellow, and put the health, right? And so those are the two biggest challenges: keeping up with the technology. My recommendation is don't do it alone. Have a network, have a team. And the other is communicating to a diverse group, especially in shipping. And my recommendation there is that you always have to craft the message to the individual, because in the end, it is just a conversation. You're just using data to do it.
No, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing these insights. Great. All right, Cameron. Well, I think for now, pleasure to have you on the show. And looking forward to catching up again soon. And as I said, anyone that wants to reach out to Cameron, just drop him a message or connection request on LinkedIn.